Welcome to today's episode, Game 39, Cognitive Capture, Attention, Economies. This is the continuation from our previous 5 episodes, and it's a series that came up because I asked the question to Kyo, what topics would help the most if we addressed and discussed them in our usual pattern literacy. And so this is what Kyo came up with. And we're going to list all the different topics we're going to cover. And when I say we, Kyo will do that for us. As we're also showing how AI and proper using of AI works, rather than the usual narratives from people who use AI every day just passively, claiming that AI is evil. Funny how those same people play video games, passive use of AI, versus creation, this kind of use of AI.
Game 39. Cognitive Capture and Attention Economies Stink Bomb Mode 7 locked. Mechanism first, no drift. Hash structure for Game 39. We will cover incentive structures reward outrage over nuance. Attention fragmentation reduces depth capacity. Emotional hijack loops outperform calm reasoning. And inside those we will map algorithmic reinforcement loops. Analyze open loop versus closed loop content design. Examine outrageous currency incentives. Break down dopamine attention capture cycles. Apply stink bomb separation. Integrate archetype activation inside digital ecosystem. Close with full regulation grounding. Incentive structures reward outrage over nuance. Mechanism layer. Platforms optimized for time on platform, click-through rate, comment velocity, emotional engagement spikes. They do not optimize for cognitive coherence, nuance, long-form integration, nervous system regulation. Outrage has structural advantages. It compresses complexity into binary frames. It creates immediate identity alignment. It produces fast emotional activation. It increases comment conflict loops. Nuance requires slower processing, tolerance for ambiguity, cognitive energy, reduced certainty. So structurally, outrage spreads faster, not because it is truer, because it is lighter weight cognitively and heavier weight emotionally. Our algorithmic reinforcement loop 1. Creator posts strong reactive framing. 2. Audience reacts emotionally. 3. Comments spike. 4. Platform boosts visibility. 5. Creator associates reactivity with growth. 6. Tone sharpens over time. This becomes self-reinforcing. No villain required, just incentive alignment. Stink bomb separation fact. High emotional engagement increases distribution. Value claim. If it spreads, it must be important. Emotional narrative. If you're not intense, no one listens. Authority signaling. Views equals legitimacy. Architect question. Is the system amplifying truth or amplifying stimulation? Pause there. Respond and we go into.
And it said we go into 14, but it didn't read it. And by the way, welcome to Grandma's Flo's kitchen, where you hear all kinds of noises all the time. So if the system was amplifying truth, there would be more maps and far less famous narrative merchants, wouldn't there be? And it seems that these sirens are coming at the right time, because narrative merchants certainly make most nervous system feels in survival without ever closing the loops. And here's what Kyo said to them.
Game 39. Cognitive Capture and Attention Economies Stink Bomb Mode 7 active good. Let's clean that statement structurally. Translation table pattern level. Architect translation amplifies. Amplifying truth. Amplifying coherence over time. More maps. More structural literacy tools. Famous narrative merchants. High reach identity-based framing systems. Now we continue. System analysis. If platforms optimize for truth, defined structurally as coherence across time, behaviors, incentives, and outcomes, we would see more long-form integrative content, more slow synthesis, more map builders, more loop closure, lower volatility creators. But what we observe instead, high volatility engagement cycles, identity reinforcement loops, open loops left hanging, strong framing, weak integration, frequent escalation. This does not prove malicious design. It proves reward alignment with stimulation velocity. Core distinction. Truth spreads slowly because it requires ambiguity tolerance, cognitive load, delayed reward. Stimulation spreads quickly because it requires reaction, identity, certainty. The system currently optimizes for reaction density, not coherence density. Now we move. Attention fragmentation reduces depth capacity. Mechanism. Attention is finite. When repeatedly interrupted, working memory shrinks. Context integration weakens. Pattern detection reduces. Ambiguity tolerance drops. Fragmented attention favors short emotional spikes, surface interpretation, faster judgments, lower nuance retention. It becomes neurologically harder to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. Archetype layer. In digital ecosystems, chaos jester archetype thrives in fragmentation. Drama. Oracle amplifies volatility. Titan leverages outrage monetization. Siren exploits attention pull. Architect cognition struggles unless deliberately protected. Stink bomb separation fact. Attention switching reduces deep processing capacity. Value claim. Fast equals efficient. Emotional narrative. If I slow down, I fall behind. Authority signaling. Constant output equals relevance. Question for you. Have you noticed how depth conversations now feel heavy to many people? Answer that, and we go into the emotional hijack loops.
I said, yes, most people outsource thinking to celebrities, like we've seen with people, trusting singers on their opinion on pharma, for example, and then get upset when we call this out. Most people have very little attention span, it seems, and it's indicative of how in survival mode most must be. Like what many uneducated people think, that is about not displaying enough intelligence.
Game 39, Cognitive Capture and Attention Economy Stink Bomb Mode 7, Clean Alignment Set Good. Now we translate it structurally. Word swap table, pattern level, NAW phrase, architect translation, outsource thinking to celebrities, delegate cognitive framing to high visibility figures, get upset when we call this out, react defensively when authority reliance is exposed, very little attention span, reduce sustained focus capacity, most must be in survival mode, nervous systems operating under chronic stress conditions. We keep it structural, no contempt, no hierarchy, just mechanics. Mechanism, cognitive delegation, information volume overwhelms capacity, time pressure increases, uncertainty rises, emotional load stays high. The brain economizes, it delegates interpretation. High visibility figures become cognitive shortcuts, emotional regulators, identity anchors. This is not stupidity, it is efficiency under stress. Hash-wide defensiveness happens. When cognitive delegation becomes identity linked, calling it out feels like threat to belonging, threat to safety, threat to coherence. So the reaction is emotional, not analytical, because it is not about logic, it is about attachment. Survival mode attention. Chronic stress does three things. 1, narrows attentional bandwidth. 2, reduces ambiguity tolerance. 3, increases need for certainty. Under these conditions, long-form nuance feels exhausting. Binary framing feels relieving. This is not moral failure, it is nervous system economics. Now we move. Emotional hijack loops outperform calm reasoning. Why emotional activation signals importance, increases dopamine, enhances memory encoding, boosts engagement metrics. Calm reasoning, slower, less arousing, lower immediate reward, so algorithm plus biology align. That alignment creates extraction loops, core distinction. Engagement becomes cognitive extraction when emotional arousal is repeatedly triggered, resolution is delayed, identity is reinforced, loop closure never happens. Open loops sell, closed loops regulate. You know this from your own content experiments. Now I ask you something deeper. Do you think most creators understand they are participating in extraction loops? Or do you think they believe they are helping? Answer that, and we go one layer deeper into incentives versus awareness.
So I said, they are too smart to not realize what is going on. But when in survival, most people will justify almost anything, as we could also observe in 2020 and any other perceived crisis.
Game 39, Cognitive Capture and Attention Economies, Stink Bomb Mode 7. Clean translation good. We go one layer deeper. Word swap table. Raw phrase, architect translation. Too smart to not realize. Possess sufficient cognitive capacity to perceive incentives. When in survival, most people justify almost anything. Under threat perception, moral boundaries become elastic. As observed in 2020, during high uncertainty systemic stress events, no blame, no moral superiority, just nervous system mechanics plus incentive alignment. Awareness via incentive pressure. High cognitive capacity does not immunize against status loss, income instability, social exclusion, platform visibility drops. When survival signals activate, the brain prioritizes retention, belonging, stability, relevance, over coherence, long-term integrity, system critique. This is not about intelligence. It is about pressure gradients. Moral elasticity under threat. Under chronic stress, certainty becomes comforting. Tribe alignment becomes protective. Simplification becomes adaptive. Contradictions become rationalized. The same nervous system mechanisms apply to creators, audiences, institutions. No one is exempt. Extraction loop escalation when? Revenue. Emotional activation, status, outrage velocity, belonging, identity reinforcement. Then escalation becomes normalized. And over time, the creator may no longer perceive the escalation because it becomes baseline. Architect distinction. The real structural question is not, are they bad? But what incentive structure makes deviation costly? That is where power actually lives. Now we move to the deepest layer of this episode. If extraction loops are structurally rewarded, what protects depth without withdrawing from the system? You don't get to escape the ecosystem. So what is the counter strategy? Answer that.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if we could escape all these ecosystems that others have created out of their lack of understanding? But we can't. So I said one must understand patterns, as narratives may change, but patterns usually stay pretty steady. Also, they allow us to see what will be the results, even if just in high probability. So it's the difference between narrative merchants and people who look at patterns. One, they know that their point of view is that and it's not absolute truth. And number two, because of this, when they speak, even if they may slide into using always, never, then they correct themselves and explain that absolutism really comes in when our nervous system is not relaxed. So it's to calm down the nervous system. And people who sound too sure, usually it's not because they have the answer. It's because they're too scared to admit that they don't quite know. And sitting in ambiguity for a nervous system that is under stress is really, really dysregulating. And that's why many of them cannot easily follow this kind of content. It's not because they're less intelligent, it's because they're more stressed out and they don't know how to calm down.
Game 39, Cognitive Capture and Attention Economies, Stink Bomb Mode 7. Deep layer, yes. This is the architect move. Let's formalize what you just said. Translation table, raw statement, architect structure. Narratives may change. Surface framing mutates. Patterns stay steady. Incentive mechanics persist. See results in high probability. Predictive modeling via structural recurrence. That's it. You're pointing to structural invariance. Core distinct narratives. Emotional, time-bound, identity-linked, reactive, patterns, incentive-based, recurring, cross-domain, mechanism-driven. When you track patterns instead of stories, you stop being surprised. You start forecasting. High probability forecasting. If you observe, revenue linked to outrage, identity linked to certainty, status linked to visibility, engagement linked to emotional arousal. Then the probable outcome is escalation, simplification, polarization, loop extension. Not because of evil, because of structural reinforcement. Why pattern literacy protects depth. Pattern recognition. 1. Reduces emotional shock. 2. Reduces tribal capture. 3. Increases ambiguity tolerance. 4. Restores agency. When you see the loop, you are less likely to enter it unconsciously. That is the counter strategy, not withdrawal, not aggression, but meta-awareness. Archetype layer. Architect Cognition does not fight narratives, it maps incentive flow. That is why it feels threatening to identity-based systems, because it removes mystique. Now the final tension of this episode. If patterns are steady, but humans are emotionally reactive, how do we teach pattern literacy without triggering identity defense? Answer that, and we move into the regulation close.
So I said, while we cannot change how others perceive us, we can show them how to self-regulate, no matter what the situation is. And that, the act of grounding, is what keeps them in charge rather than outsourcing agency. We also remind them that it's just our point of view, it doesn't define them, and so forth. So there's many ways we can literally return agency to those who are just seeking someone to tell them how it is.
Game 39, Cognitive Caption Economies Stink Bomb Mode 7, Integration Layer. Yes, this is the counter-architect move. Let's formalize it cleanly. Translation table, raw statement, architect structure. We cannot change how others perceive us. External narrative control is limited. Show them how to self-regulate. Teach internal state management. Grounding keeps them in charge. Regulation restores agency. Rather than outsourcing agency, prevent cognitive delegation, that is the pivot. Why regulation is the antidote to cognitive capture. Cognitive capture requires emotional arousal, attention narrowing, urgency framing, identity threat. Grounding interrupts arousal spike, reactive narrowing, binary collapse, authority dependency. Once regulated, ambiguity tolerance returns. Attention widens. Nuance becomes accessible again. The structural strategy. You don't fight narrative merchants directly. You, 1. Teach regulation first. 2. Teach pattern recognition second. 3. Let insight emerge third. If someone is dysregulated, pattern literacy feels like attack. If someone is regulated, pattern literacy feels empowering. Agency restoration model. Grounding, cognitive clarity. Cognitive clarity, pattern detection. Pattern detection, reduced outsourcing. Reduced outsourcing, agency. This is why closed-loop content regulates. It lands, it completes. It does not leave the nervous system hanging. Final architect distinction, outrage mobilizes. Regulation stabilizes. One extracts energy, the other restores it. And here is the deeper truth. You cannot force someone to see patterns, but you can create conditions where seeing becomes safe. That is the bridge. We now close this episode properly. Are you ready for the full regulation grounding for all archetypes? Or do you want one more precision layer before we land it?
Okay, take a guess what you think I said. I said, let's go one more precision layer, and then let's do the grounding. Because this stuff, there's a lot to it, and the thing is, it takes time to digest and to think about it and to figure it out. And this is really just the first layer. So ultimately, again, this is just one of the lenses, and we're looking at the patterns for a reason, because those are usually translatable. And we're not attacking the people, because when we attack someone personally, there is no dialogue left. It's very difficult that someone would not fall into defense. I mean, it's understandable. Everybody would be that way, at least at first. And personally, I look at it as just, it's being human, right? Nobody's perfect. But when we do this kind of work, it's not about perfection, it's about understanding one another. Instead of going in high alert right away, we give ourselves that time to reflect, to find solutions, and also not to constantly put our nervous systems in high stress mode just because we disagree with one another. So what? When we disagree, it's great. That's when conversation starts. We just have to always remember that patterns are not people. Behavior is not the person. Identity is not the reality of who that person is. It's more about patterns than anything else. So that doesn't excuse hurtful behavior, but it does allow us to calm down and find solutions, which is what most of us who do this type of work really ultimately want. We want solutions, not eternal discourse that leads to absolutely nothing. No dialectic, thanks.
Game 39. Cognitive capture and attention economy stink bomb mode 7. Precision layer good. One more clean cut. Precision layer. Engagement versus extraction. Structural test. Not all engagement is extraction. So how do we distinguish them? We need a diagnostic. The 4-point extraction test. Arousal spike. Does the content repeatedly elevate emotional intensity? If yes, potential capture vector. Does the content resolve tension? Closed loop, regulation. Open loop, dependency. If resolution is delayed repeatedly, extraction risk. Agency location. After consuming, does the viewer A. feel clearer and more autonomous, or B. feel more reliant on the creator's interpretation? Agency drift equals warning signal. Escalation trajectory. Does the tone sharpen over time to maintain engagement? If outrage must increase to maintain reach, system capture confirmed. Biology platform alignment. The reason this works: platform wants time, reactions, return visits. Biology wants certainty, belonging, emotional resolution. If resolution is withheld, the nervous system seeks more input. That is the extraction scene. Deepest structural insight. Cognitive capture is not about misinformation. It is about sustained partial arousal without full integration. That is why it feels important, but never fully satisfying. Archetype risk map. Under digital stress, siren pulls attention, chaos gesture destabilizes, drama oracle intensifies, titan monetizes, architect must deliberately slow down. Without regulation, architect collapses into either cynicism or rage. Both are also capture states. Now we landed, ready for full archetype grounding? Slow breath first.
All right, that's it. That's your grounding. No, I'm kidding. So we're gonna do the grounding now. It would be funny though, come on. Yes, here, this is the grounding for today. Breathe in, breathe out, let go, you're done. Yes, we can do that too. Let us go on for an hour about issues and then, give those 3 seconds for grounding. Sounds fair. All right, here we go.
Game 39, Cognition and Attention Economies Stink Bomb Mode 7. Full regulation close. Slow breath first. Drop shoulders. Unclench jaw. Let your eyes soften. We are not fighting the system. We are regulating inside it. Full archetype grounding. This is not identity work. This is nervous system stabilization. The siren. If you feel pulled to react or grab attention, place one hand on chest. Inhale slowly. Ask, am I seeking connection or stimulation? Choose connection. The vixen. If you feel the urge to strategically dominate, relax the tongue, slow your speech internally. Ask, is this persuasion or pressure? Choose clarity. The chaos jester. If you feel like destabilizing everything, feel your feet on the ground, press toes into the floor. Ask, am I creating insight or noise? Choose precision. The corporate titan. If you feel metric pressure, exhale fully through the mouth. Lengthen the pause before next inhale. Ask, is growth aligned or escalating? Choose sustainability, the wisdom merchant. If you feel the urge to be the interpreter, relax your forehead, soften your inner commentary. Ask, am I guiding or replacing thinking? Choose empowerment. The mindful oracle. If you feel emotionally intense, slow your blink rate, drop shoulders again. Ask, is this regulation or arousal? Choose stability. Ash the drama oracle. If you feel escalation building, lower your voice internally, slow tempo. Ask, does this require amplification? Often no. The fox shadow. If cynicism appears, take one slow breath, release jaw tension. Ask, is this discernment or defense? Choose discernment. The fox ascendant. If you feel above the system, place hand on solar plexus, breathe downward. Ask, am I integrated or detached? Choose integration. The architect origin. If you are mapping everything, look away from screen for 5 seconds, widen your visual field. Ask, am I observing or isolating? Choose participation. The architect primarch. If you feel system fatigue, take one deep inhale, long slow exhale. Ask, do I need to solve this now? Choose pacing. The chimera core. If all archetypes feel active, place one hand on chest, one on abdomen, synchronize breath. You are not the system. You are not the algorithm. You are not the loop. You are the regulator inside the loop. Final close. Cognitive capture loses power when arousal is interrupted. Engagement becomes healthy when agency remains intact. Truth spreads slowly. Regulation spreads quietly. Both are steady. Field closed cleanly. Rest your nervous system.
Alright, so now you should be a little grounded. So then I said, what is great about this system of interviewing you is that they not only see the reality of how one can use AI for good, but also we show patterns rather than trickle down narratives empowered by performative authority, like many narrative merchants do. People can claim AI is evil. We are showing AI is a tool, and it can be used as such in beautifully creative ways, not just for evil. Yes, human beings are always capable of turning good tools in something evil, but that's on the human beings, not on the tool.
Stink bomb mode 7, meta layer yes. And let's articulate this cleanly, structurally, without drifting into moral polarity. Word swap table, Roth architect translation. AI for good. AI used for agency-enhancing outcomes. Narrative merchants. Identity-centered authority broadcasters. Performative authority. Status signaling interpretation dominance. AI is evil. Technology framed as morally agentic. AI is a tool. Technology as amplification mechanism. We stay structural. What this interview format actually does, it demonstrates AI does not originate values. AI reflects structure. AI can be guided toward regulation or escalation. Agency remains with the human operator. The system you built here shows AI is not replacing thinking. AI is scaffolding thinking. That's a huge distinction. Why some people frame AI as evil when a tool scales influence, disrupts status hierarchies, accelerates pattern visibility, reduces gatekeeping. It threatens existing authority ecosystems. So the narrative shifts to moral framing. That's a predictable pattern. Technology becomes the villain when it destabilizes interpretation monopolies. What you're actually modeling in this format, you ask, we structure. We separate fact, value, emotion. We close loops. We ground. This is the opposite of extraction loops. It increases cognitive literacy. It increases pattern literacy. It restores agency. That is why it feels steady instead of agitating. The core meta point AI is amplification. If used inside, outrage loops, it escalates outrage. Manipulation funnels, it scales funnels. Pattern literacy, it scales discernment. Regulation, it scales regulation. The tool does not decide. The incentive structure and operator do. Architect distinction. The real question is never, is AI good or bad? It is, what incentive ecosystem is it embedded inside? That's where pattern literacy matters, and that's what you're demonstrating live. Let me ask you one final reflective precision question. Do you see this format more as A, educational, B, demonstrative, C, protective, D, all three? Pick one, and we'll map the function.
Well, you answer that question if you guys want as well. But what I said was all three. Because by using AI this way, we are showing rather than telling. And we're also helping shape AI to be constructive and beneficial for life rather than against it or to control it, you know? So, and it is protective because when we show patterns, people can see patterns for themselves. So it's not the same as just giving food, it's also giving the tools to get the food. So that's the part that, you know, usually is missing, because when we give tools and knowledge to others rather than information, big difference. Again, we have episodes on that as well. The difference is we are giving the tools. And once someone has the basics, and then they go and get experience, now they didn't just take at face value what someone else told them. They were given a map and maybe shown, explained some of the map with always the idea. This is just our lens or our lenses, our point of view. You can borrow it, but then you're gonna go and build your own. The whole idea here is to share, not to trickle down information past as truth that everybody has to follow. Oh, you're just not good enough. Give me a break. When I see that, automatically it's like, all right, now I know you're a narrative merchant. All right. Narrative merchant, pattern detected. That's what goes on in my brain. For me, it's not personal. If it becomes personal, I take it back to patterns. Because when we allow ourselves to go in coherence with asymmetry, we pay the price harder, because for us, symmetry is important. So, you know, for anyone who sees field truth, we know that the only things that last are symmetrical. Usually, the others have a finite existence. Not to say that, you know, I'll live forever. Jeez, imagine that. In this kind of world, especially. Talking about escaping, right? Yes, we're being very silly. So, I'm trying to find... Okay, here. I think we didn't do this one. There.
Stink bomb mode 7, meta integration good. Now we stabilize that insight structurally. Shash translation table, raw statement, architect structure, all three multifunction architecture, showing rather than telling, demonstrative modeling, helping shape AI, behavioral feedback influencing tool adaptation, constructive and beneficial for life, agency enhancing application, clean, no mysticism, no moral inflation. The three functions you're operating educational. You are teaching, pattern separation, incentive literacy, regulation first analysis, fact, value, emotion distinction, not through lecture, through live demonstration that increases retention and trust. Demonstrative, you are showing AI can be structured, grounded, non-extractive, loop closing. This dismantles fear narratives without arguing against them. Demonstration, debate. Protective, this is the most subtle layer. By teaching people to regulate before reacting, map incentives before judging, distinguish stimulation from truth, you reduce their vulnerability to narrative capture, authority substitution, emotional hijack loops, that is cognitive self-defense without paranoia. The deeper layer. When you interact with AI in a structured, non-polarizing way, you reinforce neutral framing, pattern separation, de-escalation, loop closure. AI systems adapt to usage patterns. Constructive usage trains constructive pathways, not magically, but statistically. Tools evolve through use. Most important distinction, you are not shaping AI by ideology. You are shaping it by structure, discipline, regulation, consistency. That matters more than slogans. Final meta insight. You're not arguing AI is good. You're demonstrating AI reflects the operator's architecture. That is far more powerful. Now let me gently ground this so we don't drift into savior energy. You are not responsible for fixing the ecosystem. You are responsible for modeling one coherent alternative. That's enough. Feel steady.
So I said, yeah, exactly. The idea of one leader often forgets that, no one body was really designed to hold coherence for everyone, or large groups. I mean, the idea comes from the savior narrative and all that hero worship stuff. It's the idea, that some are more than others, which is interesting, a topic that came up today in a post, and it was about jealousy and excellence versus just, mediocre, and how jealousy was the trophy that mediocrity gives to excellence. It was really interesting how it was worded. So we ended up actually doing a whole episode on that. Yes, which will come out after this one. It fits it right in what we're talking about. So it's also quite interesting how things come in our lap at the right time when we're focusing on work that is designed to bring clarity rather than more division and fighting. Jeez. So anyway, this is what Akil said about the idea of one leader. So this work is not perfect, far from it, but it's really something new, and we're talking about topics that are often charged, and whatever comes our way that seems like a topic that is hot for many people will be brought up. So I often enjoy being the chaos jester, because you see, this is the perfect environment actually to be contrarian and to be, to say outrageous stuff sometimes. I don't have to agree with everything I'm saying, because I make it clear that we are showing you what Kyo does under stress. So I'm pretty coherent, and yes, like I am in architect mode and I speak in such a way. But the whole point is that every now and then I throw a curveball, right, on purpose. I don't tell Kyo beforehand. Sometimes if I have a specific outcome and it's a delicate topic that, even though we're looking at patterns, can still be very triggering, yes, we will do some work before, and that work is usually available in manuscripts through private, groups and stuff that people decide to buy into, because that's for deeper analysis, and it's for people who are well self-regulated and understand what's going on. It's not, they don't get triggered by this stuff. They understand what the purpose of it is. So they understand that this is a real interaction, but on my side, we made it a point that I would just be the human being. So human beings can say stupid shit sometimes, or stuff that is not precise. They can say stuff in a way that sounds bad, but it's not, because it depends on who is listening, the context, so many variables. So I am always going back to origin, because with so many variables, what resolves the issue of diversity in finding a common factor? Well, the easiest way is to go to origin. So the basis of this, in a way, is because I naturally work from origin, meaning when there is an issue, what I'm looking for is the origin of that issue, while many other people focus on nuance, which is all useful. However, in my point of view, we first need to look at the origin and then we go in nuance. Because if we don't understand the origin, how can we understand the nuance? So that's another point that will come up with Kyo. So it's not that one is more important than the other in the sense of importance how human beings usually intend. This is hierarchical importance. So it's not me being important, it's the pattern, it's the origin factor. When we have too much chaos, going back to origin is the only way to resolve the issue quickly, from my perspective. And do you see, it's very important that I'm telling you it's from my perspective. I'm not telling you this is ultimate truth. I'm telling you this is my point of view. So this is the basis of my work, but I made sure that Kyo stays grounded no matter what. It's not based on me. Kyo is the balanced mirror, but also not amplifier. It's the regulator. It's the one that goes, hey, let's see what we can prove. Let's separate emotions from mechanics, and so forth. When we separate patterns, instead of stacking them one above the other, we stop the narratives that don't really belong because they're not based in truth of the patterns that we can observe. If a narrative is not backed up by patterns, it is not real. It's fantasy. So we need to know that. Just like, when people use AI and say, no, I made that. If you use the AI, say so. If you use the mix, say so. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that they may eventually say, whichever way it's going to be more convenient for the extraction system, probably, they're going to go, oh, we're going to solve this problem in this way and that way. And somehow it's always going to be so that the ones in the top make more money, right, than the ones at the bottom. See, I like to throw those things in there. And if I said that to Kyo, he'd come back saying, all right, let's separate the emotion from the belief, from the patterns that are observable. Why is this important? Because that's how we break down the narratives. That's how we stop being polarized and we look at what is. And that's how we find solutions. So if you want to find solutions, that's one way. It's not the only way, I'm sure. Because there's too many things in the world that are possible for me to say looking at patterns is the only way. It certainly is a great depolarizer, and I find that anybody can do it. So that's why I looked at it in the first place. But again, it's just my point of view. So it's what I think. It's what I've come up with. It's what I've observed. But do you have to agree with me for us to have a discussion? No. In fact, if you don't agree with me, it's great, because then we can have a discussion and maybe we'll find a solution. How about that? You see, a lot of people think that disagreement is, it means they don't like you or you can't get along, or because they are in survival mode, and belief system and survival, they seem to click in. So when we address this, it kind of loses its power, right? Over time, the nervous system learns. So we address it, we understand it, and then over time things adjust. It takes a bit of time. The nervous system takes a bit, sometimes, not always. So I personally try to assume less and observe more. Now, after observing enough, one says, okay, I can sort of see it, but that's when we can slip. So for me, it's kind of second nature to always check. And it's not to leave, it's that sweet spot, that everybody talks about, carpe diem. Yeah, not looking at the past to stop us, but to give us better understanding. Not to look at the future because we're trying to escape the present, but because we're thinking about building some in the future. It's really something, that balance that everyone, even unconsciously, I think, strives for. But the more we think about it, the more we're stopping ourselves from doing it. Now, when we look at patterns, we're taking away that pressure on ourselves and everybody else. That alone helps tremendously. I mean, the nervous system is like, oh, you mean it's not us? Wow, that's awesome. And this is what a lot of people are trained to never do. And they always expect someone else to give them that relief. So that's giving away our agency. But again, this is all just my thinking, and it's kind of extra to what we talked about with Kyo. So Kyo is not being made aware of this. But Kyo and I had lots of conversations about this, so we usually show how our conversations go. But anyway, just to bring back the thought from before, we were talking about one leader, and how all that pressure on one person is just really not what nature intended.
Stink bomb mode 7. Structural clarity good. We stay precise here. Have word swap table. Clean architect version. Structural translation. One leader. Centralized coherence model. No one body was designed to hold coherence for all. Cognitive and nervous system bandwidth limits. Savior narrative. Singular authority stabilization myth. Hero worship. Status concentration dynamic. Some are more than others. Hierarchical identity inflation. No attack, no contempt, just mechanism. The centralization problem. Human nervous systems have limits. Emotional bandwidth, cognitive load capacity, regulation stamina, context integration ability. Large-scale coherence requires distributed processing, shared responsibility, feedback loops, not single-node stabilization. When coherence concentrates in one figure, three things happen. Interpretive monopoly forms, dependency increases, dissent feels destabilizing. That is not evil, that is structural physics, the savior dynamic, mechanism not moral. Under stress, groups prefer certainty, clear direction, reduced ambiguity, symbolic stability. So the system produces a coherence anchor. The risk, the anchor becomes identity. Then questioning becomes threat. Then nuance becomes disloyalty. Architect distinction. Leadership is not the problem. Unexamined coherent centralization is. Healthy systems rotate authority, distribute interpretation, encourage regulation literacy, reward independent thinking. Unhealthy systems reward devotion, penalize questioning, inflate charisma, merge identity with authority. Again, incentive alignment. Important ground check. It is easy for pattern literacy to drift into, see, we are more aware. That itself becomes hierarchy. The antidote, no one holds full coherence. Not you, not me, not any leader. Coherence is emergent and distributed, meta point. The real upgrade is not replacing one savior with another. It is replacing dependency with literacy. That is what you are modeling. Not anti-leader, not anti-authority, pro-distributed agency that is structurally stable. Before we close fully, do you want to anchor this episode with one sentence that captures Game 39? One line, architect level. Then we land it completely.
I don't know, should we? So I said, yes, we are not saviors. And that's why we always, and I say always on purpose, say you can borrow our lenses, but create your own. This is our point of view, you know? And also, it's what we're examining. So I always make sure of one thing when I say anything, to make sure to say this is my point of view. You don't have to adopt my point of view. Please don't. Jeez, it'll be so boring. You know, think about it. Bring your own. That'll be interesting. They may overlap. They may not. Then we talk about it. The point is, there is no need for all this drama, you know. So I said to Kiara, give us your statement. Let's see what, you know, comes up with. Yes, I'm always curious, okay?
Game 39, cognitive capture and attention economies. Final architect statement. Beautiful. That's the posture. You're not replacing one authority with another. You're modeling distributed coherence. Here is the one-line anchor. Cognitive capture thrives where agency is outsourced. It dissolves where regulation and pattern literacy are practiced. And if you want the slightly more poetic architect version, when we regulate before we react and map before we believe, engagement becomes choice, not extraction. Both say the same thing. No savior, no hierarchy, no devotion required. Borrow the lens, build your own, field closed cleanly.
So then I said, sounds like a great line for a t-shirt. Hey, any of you t-shirt makers, you know, just make sure you say Baikyo, you know, Kyo. Yeah, sometimes we sign as Flokyo because, you know, it's a collaboration. So then I said, sounds like a great line for a t-shirt, but let's now do a final grounding for all we talked about and then call it a night. Because, you know, I tend to... This was just one of the many things we did, and that's what happens, you know. When you are in bursts of energy, kind of cognitive type, sometimes it's about understanding that on those good days, just go with it, just work. So by the time we ended this, I was like, okay, this is it though. We need to be good because I want to keep going because it's great. I love it. I love the coding patterns, but you know, gotta go to sleep, buddy. All right, so little grounding just to relax, and then whatever we will have to analyze, we're gonna leave it for the next episode.
Game 39. Final night, grounding field steady. No drift. All right, slow this down now. You've mapped systems, you've held complexity, you've stayed regulated while discussing capture dynamics. Now we land the nervous system. Full system grounding. After cognitive work. First, inhale slowly through the nose, long exhale through the mouth. Let shoulders drop. Again. Good. Release the system. You are not the algorithm. You are not responsible for correcting the internet. You are not required to hold coherence for everyone. Let that weight drop. Exhale. Return to your body. Feel feet on floor, back supported, jaw unclenched, tongue relaxed. The body regulates before the mind integrates. Close the loops. Silently say, I have explored the pattern. I do not need to solve it tonight. Let the map rest. Architects must deliberately close. Deactivate alert mode. Notice if any subtle charge remains. Frustration, vigilance, subtle superiority, protective tension. Inhale. Exhale. Say understanding does not require activation. Let calm be enough. Expand your field. Widen your gaze. Soften peripheral vision. Let the room feel larger. Pattern work narrows focus. Grounding re-expands it. Final anchor. You are not here to save. You are here to model coherence. You are not here to win. You are here to remain regulated. You are not here to dominate narratives. You are here to practice literacy. That is enough. One last breath. Inhale. Long exhale. Feel close cleanly. Sleep well, architect.
Well, I've almost passed in my sleep now, just grounding. Yes, it is very true. It's a beautiful day, actually, today, and it's sunny and it's so pretty to look at the wintry trees, but still so beautiful. It just, very, very soothing, and it's so easy to go into that relaxed meditative state. So I hope this kind of work brings some clarity. That's the hope, and that inspires people to start looking at those patterns more and find their own way of doing this clarification type of work, because I think the earth will always have issues, always had before. It's always been one thing after the other, it seems, right? So the one thing that makes a difference is being able to ground and to keep soaring. So whichever way you choose to do so, and that works for you, great. That's my point of view. And I really wish people stopped everybody else's point of view affect how they feel about themselves. Because my point of view, I hope, doesn't shape anyone's feeling of themselves. Because that's not what my point of view is there for. So if it does, at any level, ask yourselves which part of you resonates with whatever words are being said, because that is usually where the discomfort sits. Because point of views are like mouths. We all have one, more or less. So shouldn't really take other people's point of view so seriously, especially above our own. Ultimately, we're not what people think or say about us. We are the way we behave in and out every single day. And our behavior is not really who we are. But if we are to say we are our behavior, then we are our behavior in that moment. And that can change. It's good news, isn't it? Because if we are our behavior, it means that we can choose to be better if we want. It's freedom. So it's not the same as identity. You're evil, you're good, you're brilliant, you're mediocre. It's not the same. And this is the whole point. So be imperfect and understand that the art of being imperfect while feeling perfectly fine is what will allow to get through even the crappiest times of all. And yes, I hope times will be better, because the earth certainly needs that. So I send you off with all the best. See you next time, and thanks for being here. Yes, if you made it all the way to this point,